Good morning, good afternoon or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you have been following the saga of the K&SV and Scenic Valley Railroad build, you will have seen me install the backdrops for the diorama level. For this week's installment I'm going to lay the track on the second level. So let's just head out to the workshop and get to work. Which is Wednesday morning today, and as you can see the backdrop is nice and even again now that it's properly dried. The task for today is to start on the track laying. And I think I am going to start in this corner, probably these couple of yards of track behind the backdrop, and then work my way down this side of the room through the full diorama, laying all three tracks, and then work my way around towards winter. Not quite sure how far I will get. Of course, as soon as I get here I have 8 turnouts to put in, so that will slow me down. But the first side of the room should go fairly quickly. It's just plain track. The only hiccup being that I have a pair of bridges to install here. Although if you've been following this channel for a while, you will realise that I've already built the bridges. So let me go inside, get all of my track laying tools and everything else I need while the workshop warms up a bit, and I'll be right back. Well, right off the bat I had to change my plan because the foam rubber road bed in this corner had started to peel up. I think there was dust on the plywood below it where I belt sanded it to get it level. So I had to re-glue it. And obviously I can't lay track on that while I'm waiting for the glue to set again. So I went the other side of the backdrop and I started laying track down here. I've put in 2 pieces. And although I have already laid most of the hidden track on the railroad, until a few minutes ago I had not laid any visible track. That is the first piece. The procedure for visible track is almost identical. The only difference being that on curves, if you look closely you'll see that I have only put glue on the inside. There's no glue on the outside of the curve around there. That allows me to come back and super elevate it after the glue is set. Of course on the straight track the procedure is identical. Well, I goofed somewhat here. Originally my plan was to install this track around this curve while standing in this access opening here. But then of course I went and put the backdrop in, and with the backdrop in place I cannot reach it. So what I'm going to have to do is get in the other side, move all those clamps and crouch down on that board, because the joists in that location are too close together to stand between them. So I'm going to have to climb on top of the benchwork. Anyway, I have assembled special pieces of track in the comfort of where I can reach. I've got a short piece of micro-engineering track on the end so that it will hold its shape, because the benchwork joint had to be on a curve. And then I have a yard of Pico track which will run through the easement into the straight. So let me get organised and get around the other side, and I will continue in a moment. Well, that's a few more yards of track laid. Of course the nature of this project means that I just can't get going into a rhythm, because already I have to install bridges before I can continue. I have the bridges built along with some abutments, so I'm just going to go inside, get the stuff I need. Then once I have those installed, it's a straight shot for several more yards before I get to the junction. Well, although I built the bridges in advance, there's still quite a lot of preparation work to be done. I've just glued the ballast troughs onto the double track bridge because that's a ballasted deck bridge. I don't have to do that on the single track because that is an open deck. I've also got to prep the abutments. As we can see from this one, it's really not wide enough. So I have made additional castings and I am going to cut one of these off center and then add a wider piece, thus making 2 correct width abutments out of 3 that are too narrow. The other thing I still have to do is to paint the bridge shoes. They are just still raw white metal castings. Well, I've now done about all the preparation work that I can. I have a piece of plywood in there to support the road surface where it goes under that bridge. I have painted a batch of bridge shoes, and I have glued together the bridge abutments. I've made them 6 inches wide so that they stick out from the edge of the track about the same distance as a single track one. I've glued them together. I'm going to let the glue set up. Then I need to go back to the bandsaw, cut the bottom off one of them and add it to the other one. If we head back over to the bridge, on the road side it's a low bridge, and on the stream side it's much higher. So I will use this surplus piece on the road side to extend the abutment on the other side. The single track where it goes over the stream, I have no such issues because the abutments are plenty tall enough. So while that glue and that paint is drying, I'm going to jump to the next bench joint, which is a couple of feet further along, where all the crap is, and I'm going to work from there. Well, I've just laid all the track on the next board. That didn't take very long at all. It's just 3 long straight pieces, or gently curved pieces. And as you can see, I've got the famous cans of Mountain Dew back out again. I think the glue on these parts should be set enough now that I can continue. I'm not sure about the abutments. I think so. I think the next order of business is to cut out the sub-road bed so I can measure up for the abutments and see how tall they need to be. So don't go away. I will check in with you again later. Well, after a lot of cutting and filing and packing, I have the abutments the right size. This one I've already glued the parts in place. This one is still resting there. As you can see, it's nowhere near vertical yet. It still needs some spacers in the back just to hold it in the right place. Well, the bridge is now properly installed. Well, resting in place. It's not permanently installed. I still have to come back at some point and cut the intermediate leg shorter, but at least now I can lay the track across the bridge. What I'm going to do is put a piece glued to the bridge deck a little bit longer at both ends, making sure that it is not symmetrical, because if it looks symmetrical I might try to reinstall the bridge the wrong way around. If the track sticks significantly further over one end, it's obvious which way it goes. So I'm going to glue those pieces of track to the bridge deck, leaving them floating at the ends, and allow the rail joiners to hold it in place. And then I've got 2 more half yards of track to go in here up to the benchwork joint. So let me do those quickly, and then we'll have to repeat the process on the front bridge. Well, there is the track laid straight across that double track bridge. Note how I've used regular flex track. That's because it is a ballasted deck bridge. For an open deck bridge like the one in front, you need special bridge track. Well, all the track through the fall diorama is now laid. It's time to start on the winter diorama. Of course, I have 6 yards of track to put in around this corner, and then I'm getting into junctions. In fact, come to think of it, I need to do the junctions first so that I can get them on the straight, get the track perfectly aligned, and then work out where the easements go to get them into the curves. This morning's task is to install 4 crossovers in this area here. Now, I have not yet put the road bed in between the tracks because I'm not quite sure where the crossovers are going to go. I can always insert pieces later. Now, although the original plan called for exclusively number 8 crossovers in this area, I think there might be room for number 10s between the two main lines. So I have brought both 8s and 10s out here today. I'm hoping that I can use number 10s. Between the main line and the branch, it will be number 8s, because with the widest track spacing, the crossovers are going to be longer, and number 10 will use up a lot of extra space. Well, it looks like there is indeed room for number 10 crossovers between the two mainline tracks. You'll notice that there is some overlap. I have had to bring the toe of the one turnout closer to the frog. The two in the middle that are toe to toe, I've set it up so that the two copper ties have two regular ties between them, so there's room for a rail joiner in there. And I've set it so that where the one turnout follows another, I can leave all the long ties on, just cut the short ones off. And of course, at the frog end, between the parallel main lines, the length of that diagonal piece is just a function of the distance between the tracks. Now, I didn't want to go any closer to this end because I didn't want to get into the easement. As it is, what I'm going to do is take these wood ties off the end so I can start the easement right after the throw bar. And there is one more slight complexity in that on these two long crossovers between the double track and the single, I have to have an electrical gap because I go from one power district to another. And then one final check, I just need to take a step back and make sure that none of the switch machines are going to interfere with ribs. And I'm okay in that department because, as we can see, there is nothing anywhere near a rib. Well, I have 6 of the 8 turnouts installed. This one and the one in the same place at the other end are not yet accurately positioned. I have filled in the hole that I cut through the foam rubber because I realised that I got it cut in the wrong place. And obviously I don't want the ballast falling through later. It'll be a lot easier to see the alignment once the weights are removed. Well, that is all the track on the winter diorama completed. I say completed, it's all laid and glued down. I still have a few joints to come back and solder later, but I want to make sure that all the glue is set first, because there's a couple of places where I've got to play around with the joints and make sure I've got the right size expansion caps. Well, I had a little bit more time left after finishing the winter diorama, so I continued with the 3 tracks through the back and then through the spring diorama. I've got the logging spur in and the turnout for it. This track is not glued down yet, and I have reached as far as here on the main line. That's all I can do today. Tomorrow I have to bring out the trestle and get that bridge installed in the back. And of course, as we know from yesterday, the bridges slow me down. Well, I've got along quite well in the last 2 days. All the track is in from the end of the 4 diorama in the distance all the way around 2 sides of the room and part way back down the 3rd, all the way as far as here. And even though the staging loop is all but done, There's just a couple yards of track here across the trestle. I'm going to leave that for now, and I'm going to get on with the summer diorama. So I've already cut the bridge out. It's this small truss bridge which is going in here. I've also modified some bridge abutments. Here is one casting which is too narrow, and I've made them about ½ an inch wider. They're also not quite tall enough, so I'm going to cut strips off the bottom of this one to make them high enough. I have got the bridge installed and the abutments cobbled together. I had to jack them up, as you may well be able to see. Not sure if you can see where I joined it. That side it's a lot more visible. The extension pieces don't go all the way to the back, but that's okay because neither will the water. There'll be a tapered water area. Anyway, now that the bridge is in, I have moved over to the other side. I have finished installing this area that cuts through the helix, and now I'm going to work my way around from this end all the way around the peninsula, so that by the time I get to the bridge this afternoon, the glue will be set enough that I'm not going to disturb it. So let me get back to work and I'll check in with you again later. Well, that went quite quickly. I have got all the track in down one side of the peninsula and around the end, all the way to this benchwork joint. I'm going to go get some lunch, and then I'm going to come out afterwards and finish it across this bridge and around the curve into the upper helix. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, although it is still fairly early in the day, I have reached my target. All the track throughout the summer diorama has been completed and joined up with the upper helix at this end. I still have a few more yards of track to do over here on the spring diorama, but I don't have any more bridge abutments. If I did, I would get this bridge in today. I'm going to have to go get some more, and I'll come out here and continue on Monday. I'm not going to put the trestle in until I've finished working behind it, for obvious reasons. Well, that's just about all for this week, but before I sign off, I'd like to share a little story with you. While I was editing this video, some months after actually recording the raw footage, I couldn't help but notice that in some of the clips I had the heater on because it was in the middle of winter. Well, here I am, several months later, in the middle of summer, installing the track on the third level of the railroad, where I am basically dying in the heat and humidity out there. The only real difference it makes is that the expansion gaps are different. Whereas before I was leaving quite large gaps, now I am leaving hardly anything at all. Anyway, I thought I'd just share that anecdote with you. I thought it was interesting, and I will sign off here. Hope you enjoy the show. I hope to see you again next week. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.